Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in today's video I'll be demonstrating how I perform a pre-purchase inspection, what I look out for, what I do generally. And before the video, I would like to put out there that I'm not a trained mechanic. So I'm just a guy that loves to work on cars. I love to perform DIY on cars. I'm a car enthusiast. I read car articles, and that has given me more information as to how a good car is to function, and then able to identify cars with issues. And I think my first pre-purchase inspection was sometimes in 2007, and 2007 to date is about 18 years. And in 2010, I actually performed a pre-purchase inspection for my dad's car. And even just by smelling the car, I knew something was wrong. And well, his brother went with us, who is a trained mechanic, right? He was able to actually identify that the car had issues, and we went for another one. So I've purchased over 30 cars in the past 18 years, and I think only one has gone wrong, which was actually supposed to be a car I wanted to flip, and I purchased the car at a very ridiculous amount. So I threw caution in the wind, and I put in my scanner. I realized that yes, it was faulty, and I felt it was something I could just easily fix and then get the car sold. Only for it to turn out that it would be something that anyways, I'll do another video to cover that part. So this video would cover a particular inspection I did recently on a Hyundai i20, and I'm going to walk you step by step how I performed it. It's going to be a voice over, but you'll still be able to follow. Thank you.
And here comes the car. We were lucky to have the driver bring down the car for inspection. Although this is not my preference, I would rather come over to your place so I can see how the car starts up when it is cold. But that's fine. And so before this video started, we had checked the service history, and the car just has 44k miles on the clock, and it never missed its annual service, which was a good one for us. And then I grabbed my touch. I checked the undercarriage of the car for any kind of rust, any kind of damages. I also paid attention to um, the lower panel where you have that side board or the running board. No form of rust, just a little damage, which I eventually showed the buyer, but I just assured him that that was not a problem. And then I did a bounce check for the absorbers and also checked the absorbers for any form of physical leaks. You do the bounce check just to see if the shocks are still okay or if the car is actually resting on springs only. You see it bouncing. Then I went over to the engine bay to check for obvious signs of leakages, oil leak, coolant leak, or water leak, depending on your location, and also brake fluid leak. I also checked underneath for the drops or to see if the sump under would have collected any, would have any kind of stain as well. Just check generally for any form of obvious damages before you now talk about the functionality, right? And, and you see me also at some point, I was just checking the battery just to see the if I could detect the age of the battery, but that's not a problem. And then I went ahead to check the engine belts to see if it had any form of damage. Also, not a big problem for me. Always, all the things are easily changed and they're um, not expensive, right? And then I went into the car to start it up. And when you're starting, you want to listen to any kind of hesitancy. If you to hesitate when you want to start, if the sound it produces, if it's a normal sound, just pay attention to every sound it makes when it's starting up. That gives you an idea of what it would likely do when it is cold, right? And the car had no issues. It started well. I turned on the AC to check if it was working. So my preference is actually when I turn on the AC, I go into the bonnet and I grab the pipe. You can't go wrong this way because there are instances because of our the region we are in. Sometimes when you turn on this is summer, but when it is in winter and your temperature is going to 54320 minus, sometimes the AC would match the temperature outside. And then when you turn on the fan, all that is coming is the air outside, which is cold already. But there are two ways I check if this is working. First of all, you pay close attention to the compressor if it is kicking, right? If it is that started, and also the pipe check. But sometimes also compressors now start they now make quiet sounds, right? They are not so loud that you might not easily detect. So the best bet is just to check the pipe. If once the pipe is cold, then you know that the AC is working. And then I grabbed my scanner just to check for codes. On the dashboard, we didn't have any lights. It was just the brake lights, the door lights, and all those the seatbelt lights, which are normal. There was no MIL, that's the malfunction indicator light, right? It wasn't on. And then after scanning the car, it didn't return any code, so we're good on this car. And yes, still checking, but I can tell you it came out with no code. And after that, we took the car out for a spin. Just to mention that uh, if you are not if you don't know much about cars, I think it's just better you have a checklist. And when you're going on things that you should look out for, I don't use a checklist. I just go based on what I want to do. On a particular car, I can start with the engine. On another car, I can start with the body, right? Because at the end of the day, I would still like to check everything and then inform the owner whatever my observations are. And of course, on the body, we had no form of dings or dents. We only had scratches. And for a car of this age, I think it's just normal to see those kind of scratches. But as long as it's not a dent, for me, I'm okay. That's not a problem. So, I mean, just walking around the car, I'm looking for obvious things, and we couldn't spot anything. This car was actually used by an elderly man, and he passed away a few months back at 87. So the car was really underused. And also, let me mention that my scanner doesn't have the it's a baby. I call it a baby scanner, right? It can't scan for codes in the gear. It's only engine codes. It doesn't have the module for ABS, for airbag, for um transmission. It's only the engine it can scan. So, and for an automatic, it also gets tricky when you are doing inspection for an automatic car. So you just need to pay attention to everything, every sound, anything you can just speak, right? At that moment. And then yeah, I took the car out for test drive. So the first thing you like to do in an automatic is to see if the car would hesitate to move, if it would judder when it wants to move, and all those little signs here and there. So I took the car out for a spin.
So after test driving the car on a bad road, not bad, but on a not smooth road, right? You just want to hear for clunky sound from the strut, from the lower arm, from the subframe, bushings generally, right? Because we have a whole lot of bushings underneath the car. Once you have metal on metal, all these components are fixed together. They're usually separated by bushing for flexibility and also so that that like a cushion, right? So when the bushing is broken, the metals eat themselves, and it could range from minor to major costs. But none was the case here. The car drove fine. We went to the major road. Our speed limit here is 40. I tried to match 40. Everything was fine. There was no swerving to the right or to the left. No vibration of any kind. The car drove fine. And then I parked at I went to a parking bay now to check for one major thing. Here you want to understand if the car is smoking. Nobody wants a smoking car because it could range from a minor fix to a major fix, right? And usually it's a major fix, and the major fix is that you have to change the engine. So what you want to do here is after we got to I drove to the parking bay and then I turned off the engine. So after about 3-5 minutes, I then asked the seller to start the car. The first thing you would see me bending down, the first thing you want to notice is there any blue smoke coming out upon startup, and does the blue smoke stop? If it does stop, now the issue here is that there is on the top cylinder where we have the valves, we have seals around the valves, and when those seals are broken, what happens is oil drops through the broken seals on the piston within the chamber, within the combustion chamber, right, in the cylinder. And when you start it burns out, and that's when you see the smoke coming out. And it doesn't again, because usually while the car is working, it doesn't until you stop the car, turn off the engine. When the oil is settling, it settles again, and then when you start the car. So that's why you see people when they're going out in the morning, you might see some trail of blue smoke following them, but by the time they are returning, everything is all clear. Now that might be a major fix. I mean, you need to do some changing of the valve, sometimes the valve rubber, rather the valve seal, sometimes the old valve, sometimes the whole of the top cylinder. So just want to be careful, right? But now the major one now is you want to know, does the smoke continue? And this one, you don't have to ask them to start the engine. Just give the engine while it is running, give it some time, about a minute. Now tell the person, please rev a little, look out for the smoke. If the smoke comes out and stops, let the car rest again. Tell the person to rev. The smoke comes out and stop. Now this is what is happening. On your piston, we have what we call the oil ring. Now the oil ring, over time, right, the car might be high mileage, it might be poor maintenance, right? The oil ring might start reducing in size because it's supposed to come out, and from the piston, it's supposed to scrape the oil around the cylinder block, right? So if it is wearing, the oil seeps through and goes on top of the piston. What that happens is, because the piston keeps running, then the oil keeps going back to the piston, on top of the piston, and it keeps burning. The reason why it's just stopping and it will stop when you're ready to come up is because it is still at the initial stage, but by the time it goes bad, it just continues. And you see, that's why you see some people that they are driving, right? I'm talking of petrol engines. They are driving and it is the oil still keeps trailing them. That has got to a very terrible stage. And you are thinking it is just small start stop. It's just because it's at the initial stage. Over time, it gets bad, and you get to that position where it might take 6 months, it might take a year, it could take whenever. So you didn't want to go into that kind of, you don't want to be in that situation. So it's a good thing to avoid that kind of car. Then another easy way to also identify for me is just by smelling, right? Just by smelling the engine, you can smell an oil burning smell. Not really from the engine bay. The engine bay could be maybe because there's an oil leak somewhere, which you feel is not major. But from the tailpipe, once you perceive oil burning, then it's an indicator. Those 3 ways are the ways I identify if a car is smoking. And I don't play with smoking cars. For me, it's a no-no, but it's on you to determine how you want it to go. If the car is very cheap, right, you might go for it, but for me, it's a no-no. I let you know this is what is happening, and if you want to go ahead with it, right? And then the car was all fine, no smoke, and please also don't be confused. I know in Nigeria they say the car is steaming. Steaming is a totally different concept. A steaming car can still smoke. Steaming is just because the car is producing heat and the pipe is cold, and it's a chemistry or whatever it is. It just burns out as steam, and then later when the car is engine is hot, you don't see the steam again. So a cold pipe and a hot engine gives steam. Don't be confused that the engine is good, that is why it's steam. A bad engine will still steam. Please, let's know that. And then when I was done with all the checks of oil, I then checked for the tires, and that's a good way to also bargain. I checked for the tires. There were two the two front tires were bad. They had cracks on them, right? The car was dirty. There was this dust seal rubber that was damaged, and it was something I could fix. But all these things together, you want to consider what is the cost implication, and you also want to factor that in the when you're bargaining. So for the bargaining part, I usually do most of the bargaining for my people, for my clients, that or my friends, or whoever the person is that I do the purchasing for. And the first thing is I go online. Here in Jersey, I use Auto Trader. It's a UK-based portal. I search for the car, I search for the characteristics, the mileage, range, and all of those things, manual, automatic, all those inputs. I filter, and then I'm left with that particular type of car. I might even go as far as even the variants, because we have trims, and we have what's it called, for Qashqai, for example, we have connector, we have Entec, we have just a whole lot of them. So sometimes I will filter down to the end, right? And because I want to see the matching cost, like versus like. And usually those advertised cars are from dealers, so we expect them to be kind of expensive because they give you warranty. They would have given the car a good valet, and they would have fixed all most of the issues. Sometimes they also conceal issues, right? But the car is supposed to be in a good condition. So I usually give a range of between 1.5 and, I mean, anything from 1.5 I try to take away from, depending on the value of the car also. So this particular instance, I was seeing that the car went for between 4,000 and 5,500 online. So the asking price was £3,500, and I negotiated to 3,000 on a condition that the car will be validated, and then the rest becomes our burden. And the man thought about it, and he said, okay, yes, I'm okay with it. How about the valeting? He said, okay, let me get home and think about it. If I want to do the valeting, I'll call it 3,000, and if you do the valeting, you pay 2,800. So that was a good agreement, and we couldn't get the car immediately because he was not the owner of the car. The car was for his dad, who passed, and he needed to go through the court process, which he thought would take 10 days. So he promised us 10 days. And after 10 days, after the 8th day, he came back to us to tell us a close family member would rather have the car than sell the car, and all of those stories. So yeah, but that would have been a very good car, right, if you had bought it. It was well maintained to a very good extent, and I hope you've been able to learn some few tricks about when you want to check out cars yourself. And for Nigerians in particular, I'm going to do a video after this just talking about how to identify a converted car, because sometimes cars are imported from say for example UK, Japan. They all drive right-handed cars, and in Nigeria we drive left-handed cars. So the cars are usually imported from US, but we have some people importing from UK. Then they have people who work on those cars, they convert the steering and all of those things. But there are some major places they don't touch, which would help you identify that this car is converted, and it's now on you. But at least you have, they would not tell you. They mostly would not tell you. You have to find it out yourself, and if you don't have that knowledge, you get tricked. So I will do a video demonstrating how to identify all those things. I've identified a whole lot. I identified when I was in Nigeria a whole lot. So I feel that knowledge too will be useful. So, and if you found this video useful, please like, share, and subscribe. See you in my next video. Cheers.